Welcome to Movie and a Beer, everybody. This is Dan bringing us down on into this wonderful episode, and we have our three awesome friends and co-hosts with us tonight.
My name is Aaron. I'm the ghost of Christmas past.
I'm your host, Blake. I'm the ghost of Christmas present.
And I am Brian, ghost of Christmas future.
You do know that the Ghost of Christmas Future doesn't actually have any words in the movie, right?
Yeah, he's silent.
But Dan,
I'm not going to say another thing this whole podcast.
Silent Bob. Thanks for joining us on this centennial episode of Movie and a Beer. We watched the Muppet Christmas Carol, which is a great film. If you have not watched it, it came out in 1992. It does borrow some special effects and some weirdness from previous movies like Ghostbusters and Star Wars and things, which are very, very obvious to those that are movie buffs, but to the common kid that's just watching this for the first time, be like, what's that about?
Also, The Muppet Show.
And The Muppet Show. If this is like an hour and a half episode of A Muppet Show with a really amazing actor from England by the name of
Michael Caine. Yes, the very same Michael Caine of Jaws 4 and Austin Powers Goldmember.
Yes.
And also based on a Christmas classic and classic of literature.
Yes.
By Charles Dickens.
Dostoevsky chickens.
There were lots of chickens in this too.
See, that I would read.
Gonzo played our narrator, and then
The great Gonzo played Charles Dickens narrating the story. In some cases, verbatim from the book, just full passages.
Often.
And so there's a lot of really interesting things we can talk about, which we will in a moment. But we also had a couple of interesting beers that I picked out specifically for this movie, which I did get at one of the resident local amazing bottle shops called Bridgetown Beer House.
We love Bridgetown.
They're off of Mississippi. Go check them out. They're really cool. So we have Ill-Tempered Gnome from Oakshire Brewing, which is out of Eugene. And this is a traditional winter ale. It's based off of, I guess you would call it an American brown recipe, but it's got just more bitterness to it, and which kind of fit at the beginning of the film. And then the second one we had was Hail Saint.
Grains of Wrath.
Which is also, it's a play on words. But yeah, Hail Santa, which is a holiday spiced ale from Grains of Wrath, not what you were thinking.
Not the Steinbeck.
Yeah, no. Another classic, but not the right classic. So both of these, I thought both went pretty well. The second one was a little bit more spicy towards the second half and later part of the movie, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but this was the first Muppet movie after Jim Henson had passed. And this is the Henson Companies, and there's a lot of discussion, and you can research this a lot about what's going on, and I have multiple head shaking over here, so I'm going to shut up and let the people who know speak.
Well, Brian Henson, Jim Henson's son's directorial debut. He worked on other Muppet productions, Dark Crystal, the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, and a few others. But this is, frankly, I think it was Frank Oz helping him
shepherding Brian through the process too. And at the time, Brian evidently felt a lot of pressure.
Yeah,
because Jim Henson had just recently passed, and if the Muppet franchise was meant to live beyond him and continue to make an entertainment, a lot of that was going to ride on how this movie did.
Yeah, and at the time, it was felt that Jim Henson was the Muppets and Sesame Street and all of those characters, and it was definitely felt that the franchise would not survive his death.
I am listening, Brian. I really am, but I just noticed you used the word "felt" twice, and if I don't say it, I'm going to go insane. That's amazing.
We're going to have a conversation later on in this episode about.
I thought you were going to say off mic to tell Blake to stop pointing out puns
about the genetics of Muppets and how does this work. Because
I'm going to mute for that part.
There's questions.
Maybe we should have like a Movie and a Beer B channel, like in-depth discussion of Muppet DNA.
But anyway, back to the film.
Yes.
This film, Muppet's Christmas Carol, definitely proved that Brian Henson had his chops.
Yeah.
And it also ensured that the franchise would continue.
Agreed.
Even though Frank Oz is a power in his own right.
Sure.
It was felt that without Jim Henson and that collaboration,
right,
it wasn't going to work.
There's a lot of shows and a lot of properties that once the creator is gone,
it falls apart.
Yeah.
Not every time does it fall apart. Frank Oz says as Yoda.
Take that. Yeah, I said it like Yoda. Just Dan, do some work, do some producer work.
But like Yoda was Frank Oz. Too.
Yeah,
like,
he was Frank Oz.
Yeah.
But
He was all of
like
them.
shows like Boondocks, Community, a few other television shows where the creators were kicked off, the show still kind of works, but you can tell there's something missing.
Yeah.
And I understand that would probably be a fear with this, that Jim Henson was the Muppets were Jim Henson.
The magic would change. The alchemy would change.
Yeah, like
right.
he was the only one who was ever Kermit before this movie, and he was the Muppets. To Brian Henson's credit, I and some of the trivia I was reading up on, Michael Caine was surprised to know this was his debut as a director. He thought he'd been doing it for a while. He apparently went to him like, "You're doing a great job."
Yeah.
Well, a great job at the time, but I think from history too, because if you ask somebody kind of about my age, like what's the biggest Muppet movie that they know, Muppet Treasure Island is going to be up there.
Yeah, that one.
And that was 96, 97?
Yeah.
96.
It was later. I mean,
And-
that
yeah.
also had it had Tim Curry. And it's kind of hard
Right.
it's hard to top Tim Curry for like.
Okay, fair point. But like I'm saying, this was a success that the Muppets continued to be culturally
Yes.
relevant.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that they
agreed.
continued, like it didn't die with Jim Henson.
Yeah. It was after the show ended. So I grew up watching the Muppets.
Yeah, the show was
Show.
70s through early
Early
80s, I
or
think.
Mid
Yeah,
80s.
mid-80s.
And I know
And
the
there
second
was-
Ninja Turtles movie had In Memory of Jim Henson. That was
Yeah.
1990. So that it was right around this time that people were probably thinking, I don't know if the Muppets can still happen.
Well, I know originally this was intended to be a made-for-TV movie.
Yeah, like right to ABC,
And-
Disney, blah,
right.
blah, blah.
And somehow Disney got the rights, or somehow injected themselves into the process.
Yeah.
And they gave it a much larger budget, and they also slated it for theatrical release. I won't tell you how old I was in 1992. I was around, but I was also not paying attention to box office receipts. So
I was 8 at the time. That's all I cared about. Like, how much money is this making?
you were like a young Scrooge.
and the move to theatrical release allowed them to hire Michael Caine,
Right.
which added so much to this film. He added the gravitas along with the original source material to make this
Weighty.
weighty and not just be a cartoonish
a key-
second thought.
So
Muppet
this
movie.
this according to the internet and everything I read on the internet is true, made $27.2 million in the theaters.
What was it?
$1992.
What was it?
$92.
Do you have what they spent to make it?
No, I didn't.
Fair
actually.
enough.
It was probably
That's
not 27 million.
Right.
7 million. This was done
Right,
on the
right.
same sound stage they did the Muppet Show on. I mean,
Love it.
seriously, like you could tell there was some obvious, I mean, all right, you just have to suspend a lot of belief here because this is a Muppet movie. If you've seen the show, you know it's usually done against a backdrop. Most of this was done on a soundstage, and then they put in the backdrop of London because it's really expensive to make models that are that big, especially if it's going to be a scene that's just a passing shot.
Yeah.
So I applaud them for actually having it work really contiguously. If you pay attention and you care about those things, there's some holes and some issues and some continuity stuff. But it's a make of one of the hundreds of remakes of telling of the story of A Christmas Carol. So
At least 17, as we found from that one one
so
listicle.
There
There
was a couple
was
of,
top 16. We're assuming there's a 17th that didn't make the
At
cut.
least.
Yeah, at least, and many TV shows have referenced it and or told it and or did an episode and referencing. So it's just a countless tale.
It's
told.
embedded in popular culture, but I
very
think
much.
even A Muppet Christmas Carol itself is also a fixture in like modern
yeah.
culture too. It's both. It builds on the Charles Dickens story. Charles Dickens himself was fantastically popular and well read during his own lifetime. So he achieved kind of a celebrity status that was unusual or very, very rare before his own celebrity, at least for somebody that wasn't a ruler or some kind of emperor or king or something like that.
He's a ruler and emperor of words. He used a lot of
King
them.
This is a movie I can see people watching as part of a Christmas tradition. Every year, kind of returning to this. And if I can circle back to just an earlier point in conversation, Brian, you were talking about Michael Caine kind of lending some gravitas and weight to this. Can you imagine anybody else playing this role? Can you imagine anybody else like doing it that well?
Eddie Murphy.
I want to see it, but it wouldn't be as good.
Sean Connery. No. I think Michael Caine.
Please, Spirit, tell me there's more time.
I mean, at least it'd be a little bit more true. Well, no, I mean, Michael Caine is British, so I mean,
Right.
at least it is being told in London.
And he's a classical actor, and he approached this like he was going to do
Shakespeare.
He's the only one that has an accent. The whole rest of the cast and characters don't have accents.
I think you could argue that at least one of the or two of the Christmas spirits had accents of various kinds.
Maybe.
Also, none of the Muppets. The Muppets all have American accents. Just a spoiler alert for anybody who
they're
hasn't seen
Muppets
this
from
yet.
the show. I mean, literally. So we were looking at this going like, where are they drawing inspiration from for future movies? So we talked about the Dark Crystal, and that was a Jim Henson production from a Muppet standpoint, and we're like, oh, dude, that one character in the background that looks like a Skeksis, or that like the ghost that first visited
Ghost
Past.
of Christmas Present looked kind of like a gelfling.
a Gelfling.
Christmas Past. Christmas Past.
Christmas
Yes,
Past.
past,
Yeah, that was the
present, and
first
future.
The
Yes,
present one
first
looked like
A jolly
what was that?
giant.
That terrifying thing Dan
the
showed us.
Skeksis. So the bad birds that are in the Dark Crystal.
No, I'm talking about the fast food mascot.
He's talking about the guy with the beard.
The guy with
Yeah,
the
yeah,
beard.
Christmas
Christmas Present.
The
Yeah.
Jolly
that's
Green Giant.
The AM/PM mascot, which it goes by a couple different names, but it's basically
Horrifying.
a giant thing made
It looks
of
like
fast food.
it looks like a proto
stuff.
gritty.
It does. And I was like, I wonder where they got that. Oh, that's where they got that from. Because the first scene is like you have this giant Santa Claus guy, and it's just like, oh, that's not pretty.
So I forgot there were other human actors in this movie.
They don't have speaking roles, though.
His nephew
son,
does.
his nephew,
his
and
wife.
his wife.
Nephew's
Nephew's
wife.
wife.
The people in the background have songs and stuff, but
Some of the other school children when he revisits
yep.
the schoolhouse.
Correct.
But most of the time, it's Michael Caine as Ebenezer
Michael
Scrooge
Caine
and Muppets.
and Muppets, which the initial round of credits don't give credit to each individual Muppet until it goes to like the scrolling.
Yeah.
Kermit the Frog as Bob Marley.
Which
Bob Marley.
Yeah, this opens up a really
Hey, woman, no cry.
this opens up a really interesting investigation.
Yes.
just make a quick note
it
to
was-
sell this.
It was Scrooge's biological family that were human.
Correct.
Yes.
All the other creatures were Muppets. So
Except-
let's talk
except-
about biology.
Except
well-
Fozzie's daughter or someone in Fozzie's family was a human.
I don't think so.
Oh, Belle.
Belle was a friend
Belle-
of the family.
Friend of the family. Okay, I
of the
missed that. I
family,
missed
yeah.
that.
And Belle was biologically attached to Scrooge because that was his
There
love
was
interest.
Right,
they
right.
were romantically
That's fair.
compatible.
That's fair.
Well, I mean, they were biologically compatible. They were romantically not compatible. That's why they split.
Yes.
But
Correct.
but there's not like interspecies human on Muppet action. If you want that, this is not your movie.
But there is interspecies.
And by the way,
Muppet
this
on
film
Muppet
is
stuff.
kid friendly.
It is
Oh,
very
absolutely.
kid friendly.
Absolutely.
They're going to laugh at it because it is funny. It does use typical Muppet humor, which is a lot of sight gags and,
And
them
slapstick.
falling. And
Very
slapstick stuff.
vaudeville wordplay jokes
Yes.
with, especially from Walter Statler and Waldorf.
Yes.
Love those guys.
Yeah,
The-
but even our two narrators, I feel like they do a really good job in a kid friendly way. One to treat Charles Dickens seriously, but then two to present that in a kid friendly format.
Well, it's a classic comedy routine. Have a straight man with the weirdo.
Right.
Like most sketch comedy, like you watch any Mad TV, SNL, Kids in the
Laurel
Hall,
and Hardy. Yeah.
Laurel and Hardy, there'll be a straight man reacting to the weirdness to heighten how weird the weirdness is.
And you also said that some of the reviews, and there's a really interesting video that I sent to the guys so we could preface this discussion, that it's actually like, so Dickens actually being cited and recited and then having that audience character
Yeah,
be relatable and asking those questions of the narrator that the kids would be asking.
Right.
And explaining it in not a dumbed down way.
So
but just
exactly.
explaining it.
Our two hosts and two narrators are Gonzo the Great, and then also it's
Rizzo the Rat.
Rizzo the Rat.
Yes.
And Rizzo does an excellent job, I think, as a stand-in for, like, if you got an 8-year-old, what are the questions they're going to be asking if they're not familiar with Charles Dickens in A Christmas Carol?
And he's quick with the jokes, so once they start getting bored, they'll see him eating an apple. Like a kickoff joke. Like, we're not going to have any more stock if you keep eating these apples. I'm increasing demand. Crunch, 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 crunch.
Yeah, right. I'm reducing supply and driving up the price. All right.
Yeah, and Gonzo has the opportunity to actually recite some of Dickens' words
Which is so cool.
Verbatim. Yep.
verbatim. And, being an English lit major, I had forgotten what a wordsmith Dickens was. I mean, Dickens writes a lot.
He doesn't get paid per word,
He
but
gets
you
paid
know.
he got paid per
He
word.
did get
Yeah,
paid per word.
that's
He
why he
did
wrote
get
so
paid
much.
per word. But some of his prose is really
it's
magnificent.
great.
It's really well wrought.
Pile of bricks. Something like just describing a building as pile of bricks. Like, ooh, yeah, I get that.
Well, Dan was
I like
saying
it.
before, this is kid appropriate, but I think this also works for grown-ups too.
Very adult appropriate.
There's
too.
so much in here that will have a mass appeal to every different person in your family is going to find something to love in this movie.
I mean, simply for him to be able to read off as the Ghost of Christmas Past takes him to his old school.
Oh, yeah.
And they start immediately talking about the scents, the smells, the
thousand
aromas,
different
odors
1,000
connected to
different
a
odors.
thousand different thoughts and
Yes.
a thousand different
they list
emotions.
like 7 different
Yes.
things. Like, yeah, I can see
And
that.
that's straight. I mean, and it worked for the scene. I was like, wow, they really did a good job of translating such verboseness into a visual medium.
Now, we're saying a lot of really good things about this film, and I think it deserves it. I think we're being fair and we're being honest. However, there is some internet argument about a decision that Disney had made 30 years ago.
Oh, yes.
So, Blake, maybe you want to set this up, and we can sing a song about it.
Well, Aaron, I'm not going to sing.
But there was a song.
There's a.
Oh
during
my
the-
God, I hate musicals.
Me
What does Dan
too.
think? What does Dan think?
I hate them as well.
Pa, pa, pa.
No,
Yeah,
there's-
this is what we're doing for the 100th. All right, boys. 5, 6, 7, 8.
No, we're not
100
musically.
songs on the wall. No.
Yes. So you just YouTube it or Google it. They removed
yeah.
the movie from the original cut.
And I didn't get a chance to check. If you have Disney Plus, it might be on there because they added it
after
re-edited it.
December 9th. After December
So it
9th,
should be
they
there now.
restored the
But-
original director's cut.
But if you don't,
the director's
there's a
cut.
scene. It's a Ghost of Christmas Past, I believe.
Yes.
It's he meets Belle the second. We see him meet her the second time.
Scrooge's love interest, Belle.
Yes.
Yes.
Is sitting by a lake, and he
And-
comes to join her, and she
she
says,
laments that all he cares about is money, and he keeps
Yes.
saying, "Well, no, I'm doing this to do better. I want to do better by you."
I'm doing this for you, dear.
and she just wants him, his time, and
She wants a
relationship,
a love
not with-
interest that's present.
Yeah.
And
she doesn't
attentive.
care about the money.
Yep.
And in the original version, there's a song that they do. I guess a reprise. Is that
Yes.
what that is in a music? A reprise at the end that kind of answers. It also informs his decisions as a character, Scrooge's character.
What his motivations are,
Yeah.
the decisions he's making, but then also too of like why is his relationship with Belle dissolving?
Yeah.
And we don't know that now in like the popular cut, not the
Nah.
director's cut.
In the popular, you see them meet at Foswick's party,
Christmas party.
and then they cut to one of possibly two. He mentions. He mentions this Christmas party is so popular. I should do it twice a year.
"Yeah, you're right."
And then later, supposedly older, because it's a different actor for Scrooge, essentially breaking up, and then Scrooge saying, "Oh no, I screwed up."
Well, and the thing is in that cut scene, he actually is singing along with Belle,
Yeah,
like 50
yeah.
years
Like Michael
after
Caine.
the fact.
Yeah.
And so the old version of Scrooge, like clearly that left such an impression on him that he remembered every word. He remembered the song. He sang it with her while he was crying. Revisiting this memory with the Ghost of Christmas
Yeah,
Past.
he realizes at the end of the film that he had a choice to go two different directions,
Right.
and he went the wrong direction.
He chose
So
wrong.
the real point of this conversation
He chose poorly
is
Yes.
why does Disney suck and why did they make that decision at the
because they're basically Scrooge. All they want is money. That being said, put
Yes.
me in Ant-Man 3, you cowards.
yeah. So there's
it's
a lot
easier
of,
to sell an hour 30-minute film to theaters
Yeah.
than it is to sell an hour 40-minute film to
Yes.
theaters.
Commercially correct, but artistically wrong.
Well, I was
Correct.
wondering maybe
Yeah.
it's like they didn't respect the kids enough to think it was going to be important.
they
or-
may not get it.
That was one of their thoughts. Was
I don't know.
would kids be into this? Which kids are incredibly savvy.
They are, and like so many kids. I mean, I say this now here in 2022.
As a
the
grown
close
ass
of-
man.
I say this as a grown ass man in
really
2022.
gross.
Like so many kids have had parental marriages dissolve, or like their parents were never married. Like they've had to navigate adult relationships between their adults. I think kids would absolutely get it. They would absolutely know what's going on.
Well, we've also got to look at what's going on in the industry in 1992 when this was made. Musicals were on the decline, so it was thought by the
Yeah.
studios that one more musical number
Maybe too much.
may be too much.
Huh.
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't know. Blake, you're what, 4 when this came out?
8.
Okay, 8. Do you remember any musicals from back then?
Grease.
I was more into, I ate Grease, and that's why I'm so sick all the time now.
Grease was way earlier.
That was way
The Wiz was way earlier. There weren't a lot of feature film musicals.
Okay.
Well, like
Well,
the
I
heyday
think-
was
I
like
think
American
the most
Graffiti or
the most
like,
I watched as a
yeah.
kid were Little Mermaid. Did The Land Before Time have songs in it?
I don't remember.
I remember
Aladdin. Aladdin, I think,
Aladdin
was
I
about
watched like a maniac, but that was
Yeah,
partly
but
for Robin
that
Williams.
that was
So
2000s.
Yeah.
but
no,
J-
Aladdin. Aladdin was 92.
I don't know.
When was?
No.
Okay,
I'm talking about the
I am going to
animated
say
one.
though. I am going to say, yeah, the animated. Now, I will say that the Muppet Show had a musical guest every episode, so music and
Yeah,
sing-alongs happened before that performance. During the performance, they performed with the Muppets and did their solo stuff, and then after. So there was always music and singing involved with the Muppets. So this is again, if this was
Part
meant
of,
to be
part
just
of the
an
Muppet world.
the Muppet world includes music and singing.
Yeah,
so
but musicals as a theatrical release, that
Correct.
was a 60s and 70s
yeah.
art form, and it really died in the 80s.
It really did. So we have 2 people shaking their heads no now.
Oh,
No,
I
we were
did
shocked.
a Google search. Aladdin's theatrical release November 25th, 1992. Almost exactly contemporaneous.
Yes.
Okay.
yeah,
Like,
I
And
genuinely
that's
thought it
the
was a lot
Robin
later.
Williams Big Blue.
Yeah.
That Robin Williams was
Genie.
Genie.
It's called
Yep.
a Genie,
Yep.
Dan.
Please forgive me.
You're
I'm
forgiven.
old and forgetful.
And I'm a young Scrooge after all the ghosts bothered him. You're forgiven.
None of us labeled ourselves as the Disney animated feature expert.
No,
like we didn't.
we
None of
aren't.
us introduced
We're
ourselves.
ghosts,
though.
Aaron.
Yes.
Ghosts.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Ooh, and I'm just here to facilitate. It's all good.
Well, this is in my realm as Ghost of Christmas Past because this was the past.
Okay, so I do have one more point to make.
Yes.
In the Kermit and Piggy household, all the girls are pigs and all the boys are frogs. How does felt genetics work in this setting?
Why are you doing the Spock hand?
I'm trying to like pair them off because there were 2 boys and 2 girls, and then something hanging out over here, which we don't know what that is because it does. So, and then at the end of the film, they put a big turkey on the table. Like they're carnivorous. Like
Pigs will eat anything.
pigs will eat anything.
Pigs will eat anything.
having
Including
watched, having
themselves
watched
and each
Snatch,
other.
I can
And
attest to that. But
the
also,
frogs.
again,
Frogs are carnivores too. They eat bugs.
Well,
but again,
Okay.
Dan,
And grubs and worms.
Muppets are technically felt, and that was a regular turkey.
Correct. So I'm not saying that they were cannibals. I'm
Yes,
just
you
saying they
are.
were
You just said
carnivores.
that.
No, they're carnivores,
He's
not
suggesting
cannibals.
this.
I'm suggesting that
Yeah.
they're cannibals because they're animals eating other animals.
But he's also trying to get at the sexism of why are the girls pigs and why are the boys frogs.
Correct.
In
He's
the
trying to get a
Muppet
rise out of me,
universe,
is what he's
Hell
doing.
yeah.
pigs is the female gender and frogs is the male gender.
Explain
But-
the pigs in space, then, sir. There's
Okay. Then there
Lance Hamilton or whatever his name is.
there are multiple scenes in this movie where all of the bankers are pigs, male pigs.
I would say they are boars.
So I'm confused. I'm like, how does this
Is it
genetics
because
work?
they both start with B? Boars are bankers?
No, boars are wilder than pigs. They're
They are
bristlier.
javelinas.
I don't want someone wild dealing with my money. I want someone calm and straightforward, like a frog.
Oh yes.
Frogs
Here we
get
go.
stepped on and eaten.
I want
Yes, they
Bob
do.
Cratchit to do my taxes.
We were ready for them to show the pot with the little kid's leg hanging out, like in the future. It'd be
You were
like,
ready for that.
Dan was
Let's
ready
make
for
it
that.
happen.
So we had some
So-
beer with this.
I was waiting for somebody to bring that up.
Thank God. Thank you, Brian.
Let's cut that off. This is the part of the podcast where we start talking about the beers we enjoyed while watching this wonderful children's
Yeah.
movie. So we're talking about The Muppets Christmas Carol, which is a take on
Charles Dickens.
A Christmas Carol.
A Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
But I mean,
is
it's
a
not even a
well-known
take.
movie.
It's just the story.
It's the
With
story
a couple extra jokes here and there.
With
It's a rendition.
and some
Yeah.
musical numbers, because I don't think they sang in the book.
No, the version I had, that we had to hand out song sheets.
Okay, and you had to sing the parts.
No,
while
I
you
made
read
that
it?
up.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. You never know. Every school district does it
Yeah,
different.
it's not Lord of the Rings. You don't have to read through 7 pages of song to get to the action.
Alrighty, we knew what we were going to watch ahead of time, and I was like, "Hey, let's
think-
go shopping for beer." And there's a lot of different Christmas beers out there, and there's some that have been made over and over and over numerous times. And don't really change a lot year to year. And then there's some new ones that are one-offs. And so we have an example of each of those. So we have the first one we did is from Oakshire Brewing, which is out of Eugene, but they do have a tap room here in Portland. We bought both of these beers at Bridgetown Beer House, and shout out to them for always having a great selection of good, interesting, seasonal, and strange things.
Great selection in the fridge and on tap. Like
Yes.
I've never been. There are places where I won't go because there's nothing on tap I ever want, but they always have at least one thing I like.
Yeah, they always have good stuff. So Ill-Tempered Gnome has been around for many years as one of their seasonal regulars. And there's a name on the can on the Gnome's hat.
There was. I was wondering if that was different across different.
It's Norm,
cans. Well, I see
GNORM.
Norm.
I think it's a reference to a
Norm the
Anthony
Gnome?
Michael Hall movie.
Norm
Gnome
Macdonald?
No, Gnome named Norm.
Oh.
Yes.
It's some terrible comedy that was
Okay.
released in the 90s.
Well, as far
or
as-
80s, maybe.
As far as the beer goes, this American brown ale is an Oakshire original. We combine toasty, dark malts with resinous hops, creating the perfect winter ale to soothe your ill-tempered gnome. That's from the can. I didn't just make that up.
Gnome.
Yeah.
It's got a pretty, if you were to pour this in a glass, it would normally have a pretty big head because it is very well carbonated. It's got hoppy pine resin and some tropical on the nose with maybe a little apple and caramel back.
I like that hoppy. I like the structure that hops
Yep.
give to it, and I like that kind of resinous, piney. To me, that suggests more Christmas.
It's
Because
based off
I
of
didn't
a
get
really
any
strong,
citrus
Yeah,
when I drank. I got some
it's-
apple, I got some honey, but
There's a really strong American brown ale, so it's a lot of roast. So Brian, you have a good flavor profile when it comes to hoppy and not hoppy beers. You like both styles.
I do. This was more bitter, a little more hoppy. I enjoyed this with the film.
Yes.
I enjoyed it overall. I liked it a lot more than the second beer.
I'm with
And we
Brian.
can get there in a second.
Yes.
It kind of had a bitter profile to me, which went well with Scrooge's bah humbug feeling about the season.
And I made the mistake of getting up and grabbing one of our sugar cookies that was left over from our holiday party a week ago to eat towards the end of having this beer. And I was like, holy crap, this goes really well because the sweetness really cut the bitterness. And the flavors matched up really, really well. So if you are going to drink this beer,
To hear more,
Have a sugar cookie.
tune
Have a
into
sugar
Cookie
cookie.
and a Beer.
Yes.
Dan's podcast.
I'm there for that.
we'll make predictions and do shout outs. We'll find out what cookies go
Tonight's
with what beers.
episode, Snickerdoodles.
Yes, true. I think this is a really, really interesting beer in that it changes. I know in years past it's had a lot more spice in it, and this year it's just more of that hop, Northwest hop profile that's going to have that piney resin, and it's bitter. It is a bitter beer. It is not a smooth winter warmer, which the second one that we had is a lot more like. Any other thoughts on Ill-Tempered Gnome before we move on?
I think it matched the movie.
I did as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of a good winter beer overall, but also really
Yeah.
nice for kind of settling in, watching a fun movie.
Yeah. So 6.8 ABV and 65 IBU for this version. You can catch it in bottles or cans, most likely cans, tall boys, at most grocery stores. I know like Freddy's has it, and I would imagine that most of the other major chains have it as well.
And the can art is very fun.
In the can art, I think is the same every year. That doesn't change, so that's why I really like it. It's like you know what you're getting, but it does have a block of text which explains what it is, which Aaron did a great job of reading earlier.
I thought Aaron made that up off the top of his head.
No, he did not.
No, I'm going to make this up, though. Hail Santa Holiday Spiced Ale. Spiced holiday ale made with cinnamon, allspice, ginger, nutmeg, and honey. Worship cheer.
Worship cheer. Grains of Wrath Brewing.
Wow,
which,
great improv skills, Aaron.
which is-
It's impressive.
which is out of Camas, Washington, which is a suburb of Vancouver, which is a suburb of Portland. It's not that far from where Brian lives, actually. It's on that east end of Vancouver.
Don't dox Brian.
I'm not doxing him. I'm telling you, he lives over the
We
mountain.
all live in the
Yeah.
Pacific
I-
Northwest.
We're all
I
here.
What?
I live near this brewery. It's fun. It's a fine community. I
Yes.
go hiking there
And
once a month at least.
Nice.
Nice.
So there's also a tap room on North Williams. They do have production and distribution here in Portland as well. This is 7%. This beer is actually, I think, I prefer this one over the other one, and I'm going to disagree with my co-hosts and say I think this beer actually went better because it tasted more like the holidays.
This one, like just the spice profile on it reminds me of any like slow cooked braise or roast I've done where it's got like a bay leaf and black pepper and maybe a couple cloves in it. Like the spice profile on what you would get by cooking, some brisket that way with a bit of cabbage and, onion and carrot, like that tastes a lot like the spice profile that I get out of here. So for me, this beer is like, did I cook this?
Okay, I can understand that. But there's also candies and fruits and different desserts that have a similar profile that have and share with the similar spice. So like pumpkin pie.
Or the clove. If you were to do cloves in like a ham or something like that.
Correct.
Like, you would get some of that same flavor profile. But for
cinnamon allspice. I mean, where's the ham? Miss Piggy's on the screen. There you go. Let's go there.
This beer reminds me of being at a punk rock show where all the kids are smoking clove cigarettes and,
Holy crap! Here we go.
and you can't breathe. It's
Overpowering.
the clove and cinnamon
it's
Too
intense.
much?
are a little bit too much.
I'm not going to disagree
me.
with that. I'm not going to disagree. They're very. It's a very spice forward beer.
It's intense.
I would drink this with a Christmas horror movie.
Yeah, which we might
Having
watch later on.
having an intense kick of flavor along with the I assume I don't watch a lot of horror. I assume Christmas also has co-eds getting murdered by some psycho.
I was going to ask for examples of this genre, but like Gremlins.
I mean, that's tech horror-ish, but it is a Christmas movie.
Right.
Okay, so
I mean, I'm talking like a bunch of people in Santa hats and knee-high boots, and then someone's stabbing. And there's
So when you
blood
get your
and-
Alien Bad Santa crossover, this is the beer you want.
I guess not sci-fi though.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like Friday the 13th, but in December.
so this is
Like Saw with Santa hats.
Santa hats, yes.
Santa hats.
good grief.
so the can
Jigsaw
art.
can see when you're sleeping or awake.
So I'm going to ask the gentleman at the table to
In
pick
a
up the
sauna.
can and look at the can art. This is can art by Herb Epon, and it is like a playing card where you've got a king and a queen.
I'd almost say
or-
tarot card,
It
too.
is. It's a tarot card. You have the hearts, which is Santa above, and you have the spade, which is who? Krampus.
If your can
Krampus
is empty and you
below.
flip it over, you'll see. Yeah, it is.
If you
double
pour one
sided.
out for your homie, you can see it as Krampus.
And Krampus has a little child in his bag with some thatchets coming out.
A little blonde kid,
A
looking
little
all
blonde
sad.
kid. It's like, and Krampus has got an evil grin with some teeth.
He's got the same chain that Marley and Marley did.
Yes, he does.
Marley and Barley.
And so there you go. So I'm just going to leave it at like it's naughty and nice because it's a nice spice beer, but again, it's not for everybody because the spice
That's
is
why Dan likes it.
very forward.
Yep.
I go both ways. All right, so
Good beer. I find it the spicing to be a little intense, as we've said.
yeah,
Same.
yeah. So any other thoughts on this wonderful film other than the weird biology that Felt does?
It's hard to get 2 beers into an hour and a half to like really slowly enjoy them.
These are tall beers. If you want to do 2, maybe regular size cans. Maybe.
Stick to lower ABV. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or eat some cookies with it.
Yeah.
24 ounces, not 36.
Yeah, these are so these are both over 6%. So if you're not used to that, find something that you're going to enjoy. That's not going to distract, or maybe will distract because the first one was bitter and it went with the bitterness that Mr. Scrooge had. So maybe an IPA of some sort.
How many languages can you count to 100, Blake?
0. So
Really? Can you count backwards from
I
100?
can't do the 90s. Like the 90s for me in English don't make any sense. So I just skip it.
Were the 90s a difficult time for you?
I was in my teens, so yes.
They were
No,
dramatic.
I was going to ask, I was lamenting to Brian, Disney has the rights to the Muppets, and they have so much money. Why aren't there more movies where Muppets are the main cast with 1 or 2 lead actors?
There's some
So-
live action Muppet movies.
Well, I
out
want
there.
to know. I was going to ask you guys, what movie would you want to see, or what piece of work would you want to see Muppetized? I'm going to steal the best one, Die Hard.
Total Recall.
Still
countering you.
Still Bruce Willis. Let me
No.
finish. Still Bruce Willis as the one human, and his wife Holly Gennaro, and then Hans Gruber, the terrorists, the Argyle, Steve Urkel's neighbor, the Johnson FBI agents, all Muppets.
All Muppets
Like
all
that
the
would be
time.
incredible. See Sam the Eagle saying, "We'll cut the power line. It's the American way."
Yeah, no.
So, but I would love to see Total Recall. Who's the one
Recall.
human?
Yeah, it would be Arnold.
No, the chick with
Arnold.
the 3 knockers.
Oh my God.
Everyone else is Muppets.
There's some really, really disgusting Muppet sort of Muppet-esque movies that are out there that
That's not the
I've
question, though,
seen.
Dan. My question is, what non-Muppet movie would you make into Muppets?
The Terminator, or I just love Arnold. I love
the
Arnold
Terminator would be
films
good.
because then it's more
Reservoir
believable.
Dogs,
Oh, shit.
Who's the one human? Who's the one human?
Mr. Pink.
Oh my God, Steve Buscemi dealing with Muppets is incredible.
That's better than my idea. That's much better.
there-
What's your
there's a
idea?
scene-
What's your idea?
No, please tell us.
You have to share.
Oh, I was thinking like a Battlestar Galactica reboot with Muppets.
Ooh, that'd be good too.
You know, and then
They
Gaius
had the
Baltar
puppet-
is the one human.
They had the puppet dog in the original TV.
So-
Are you talking movies or TV shows?
I was talking about a reboot of the TV show.
Oh, like the original TV show?
No,
original or
the
latest?
Edward
90s,
James
the
Olmos,
2000s,
Jerry
yeah,
Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That, like
yeah.
so, Edward James Olmos is now a Muppet.
Yes.
The president is a Muppet. Everybody's a Muppet except for Gaius Baltar, the most like weak,
That would be
the most
hilarious.
callow. Like
That'd be
To
hilarious.
build on Brian's, all I can picture now is that scene in Reservoir Dogs where Mr. Pink's running and then it shows the cops chasing him and does that cut once or twice. It's him running and the Muppets doing that up and down thing they do.
That would be hilarious.
Or how about leaving Las Vegas? with Miss Piggy playing Elizabeth Chu's
Of
character.
course, that's who's playing that.
Because you can and you should.
Shaun the Dead with Simon Pegg and Fozzie as Nick Frost's character.
Yeah, that would be cool. I
okay,
can see that.
Boogie Nights, but Mark Wahlberg is still Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, there you go.
When he shows at the final scene, is that felt or is that?
Oh, wouldn't you like to know?
Okay, this went
All right.
so much better than I could have imagined. Thank you, gentlemen, for
Yes.
indulging me.
Yes. So again, the centennial episode. We want to thank everybody for listening and hanging in there with us and putting up with our ranting. We've come a long ways, and we're going to continue going on and perhaps do it in person.
These
in-
mics were
in
made
places.
for talking.
They were, and we're not going anywhere anytime soon because we got crappy weather coming up, and we're going to just be hunkering down
Watching
for the rest of the
movie,
winter.
drinking beers.
Exactly.
Right.
We were
Best-
going to be doing a bunch of that.
Best thing to do in an ice storm.
Yes, or pandemic if it comes back. One of the two.
A pandemic
If
ice storm.
it's been just
Yes.
kind of. I don't want to get too real on this, but it's just been kind of hanging out.
It's just hanging out. All right,
It's
so-
getting ready to hit.
Yeah. So, gentlemen, do you have any words of wisdom for our fans on our centennial episode? Just
Definitely not.
No. just thanks for putting up with us.
Yeah.
If you've made it to 100, I'm impressed. That's even more than I have done.
Yeah, I've edited them all, so yes, I've had to listen to them all multiple times. It's all
You're
good.
welcome.
Yeah. So again, we're doing this for fun. We're doing it for you, the listener, and for our own sanity because we have to say something to someone. We can't just keep it inside.
No, I just say whatever all the time out loud by myself. I'm doing great.
We're
Yeah.
only doing a podcast because we're white guys, right?
Yeah.
We're white guys with facial hair.
We all have facial hair at this moment.
Oh God,
do.
I need to shave.
No, you don't.
No, you don't.
Sorry,
We're the
Dan.
beard boys.
It's no shave December.
You can block
instead of
that out
November.
if you need. If that's
No, it's all
too
good.
on the
No.
nose.
No,
Too
it is on
personal.
the nose. It's there's never anything too personal, other than if you don't hydrate.
You're gonna hydrate. Yeah. Waka waka.
My favorite. All right, so what's everyone's favorite Muppet before we go? Mine is Mr. Beaker.
Fozzie, Team Fozzie.
Tied between the Great Gonzo and Rolf.
All right, animal.
Swedish Chef.
Oh, the
bark, bark.
Because what characters? How many characters do they have that don't actually speak any words? That are it's a made up mumble jumble. Most like there's a third of the characters in the Muppets that don't.
It's a pretty
actually
good
speak
number.
words.
Well, like Animal. Does
Correct.
Animal and
Animal says animal dance. He speaks a couple of words.
All right, he
I don't know if
very
he's
limited.
fluent, but I know he's.
But Swedish Chef, he just says herda herda bark bark bark. Yeah.
The chicken's cluck.
The chicken's club.
Beaker only
Beaker?
meeps.
Oh boy, Dan, fix that in post.
We're gonna leave that in. That's all.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Hell yeah.
listeners.
Congratulations on 100 episodes. Here's Beaker.
Yes. Most definitely.
There's a good number where it's just a lot of like humbling and bumbling. At least it's for sure for the 70s show because it's all backstage stuff. It'd be people in the background just as they just walk by.
What Waldorf? Why were they who are
Statler
the,
and Waldorf?
Statler and Waldorf. I actually think I like them the best.
They are
they're
great
so
characters.
funny.
They do a really good job, and it gives fond memories of childhood watching
Right.
the Muppet Show. It's always good.
This dialogue's putting me to sleep. I should be so lucky.
Exactly. Thanks for listening, and as always, the opinions expressed during the taping of this recording, those are the hosts. and maybe other people, but we're sharing what we think. And, thanks for listening and hanging out. It's been a great journey, and we're going to continue on and find interesting things to watch and share and talk about, and maybe some better beers. I don't know. We'll figure it out as we go. So, hasta la vista, hasta mañana, and I don't even know what next week is.
Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.
Bah, humbug.
This is Aaron. I guess I'll sign off by saying, for all the happiness you can contain, happy holidays.
This is Blake going to panic mode because I didn't know I was supposed to have something so wonderful and nice to say. Be safe out there.
This is Brian. Thanks for listening to 100 episodes. Goodbye.
Oh, thank you, Brian. All
Brought
right,
to you
take
by
care.
Totino's.
Yes. Pizza rolls on me. Bye-bye, everyone.